The last time I saw my father, I was 18 and standing on our front porch with a duffel bag at my feet and a letter in my hand, begging him to open the door. 10 years later, I was back. Only this time I didn't come to knock. I walked through the marble lobby of the Willow Ridge Grand Hotel in heels he'd never seen me grow into, past a hostess in black satin and a banner strung across the ballroom entrance that read, "Congratulations, Superintendent Thomas Lane, 40 years of educational excellence." The air smelled of overcooked salmon, designer perfume, and the kind of champagne that tastes like secrets. I could hear laughter from the other side of the ballroom doors. Warm, well-practiced, curated to match the slideshow of smiling students and science fair ribbons, undoubtedly looping on a giant projector screen. I stood just outside the entrance, my reflection caught in the brass-trimmed glass. The sharpness in my jawline, the arch in my brow, things he used to point out proudly and claim as Lane family traits. I didn't knock this time. I didn't need permission. In my coat pocket was an envelope. Old, yellowed at the edges, creased clean down the center from being folded and unfolded too many times. My handwriting in blue ink, still slightly smudged from the night I first wrote it. This wasn't some dramatic return. I hadn't flown across the country to ruin his party. That would have been too easy. No, I came because for 10 years he'd told the world I vanished, that I was ungrateful, unstable, that I'd burned every bridge and left without a trace. But I didn't vanish. I left a letter, a simple one page, and he buried it. Behind those ballroom doors, they were toasting him. The room was full of people who had believed every carefully curated version of his story. They believed because it was easier than asking questions, because silence had always protected him, because image always mattered more than truth. But the truth was in my coat pocket waiting. The band inside shifted from piano to soft jazz, a pause between songs. That was my cue. I slid the envelope back into place, lifted my chin and opened the doors. Every head turned. Every fork hovered midair. Laughter stopped in mid-sentence, the ripple of recognition moving like cold water through the crowd. I stepped inside slowly, heels silent against the carpeted floor, my gaze fixed on the stage. And there he was, Thomas Lane, my father, wearing the same proud smile he'd used in school board photos and yearbook covers for decades, standing beside a collage of academic accolades, classroom snapshots, and trophies that glittered under the chandelier light, a timeline of his spotless career, curated like a museum exhibit. Until now, the moment his eyes found mine, the smile cracked. I didn't stop walking. I didn't blink. I didn't need to. This wasn't a confrontation. It was an unveiling. He had spent the last 10 years building a reputation on the absence of my name. And I was here to remind him that history doesn't stay buried forever. He took a step back. A reflex. A crack in the armor. I passed a woman in pearls, her face turning pale as she recognized me. One of the district's assistant principals, maybe. Another smiled awkwardly, unsure whether to greet me or pretend I didn't exist. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just stood there near the edge of the crowd waiting. The MC had just finished reading off his list of achievements. 40 years of service, a legacy of leadership, a father figure to hundreds of students. The applause was polite, expectant, tinged with admiration. And then the room noticed me. They stopped clapping. Thomas's hand twitched by his side. He looked at the microphone, then back at me. I tilted my head slightly, a small gesture, just enough to say, "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to make you seen." He turned away, flustered, motioning to someone off stage to keep things moving. But it was too late. The ripple had begun. Whispers filled the silence he couldn't control. And me? I just waited. Because this wasn't about vengeance. It was about the truth finally being louder than the lie. There was a time when my father used to call me his golden girl. At school district dinners, PDA award nights, and education board retreats, he'd pat me on the back, smile proudly, and say, "That's Harper. top of her class, future Yale Law. Just like we planned. People would nod and smile, telling him what a lucky man he was. And he was, as long as I followed the script. I got straight A's, played flute in the orchestra, joined student government, and volunteered on weekends. I didn't do it to impress him. I did it because I thought love came with conditions. That if I performed well enough, stayed perfect long enough, I could earn something real. And for a while it worked. He paraded me through the halls of Willow Ridge High like I was his greatest achievement. This one's going places, he'd say. I made sure of that. But the moment I showed signs of becoming someone other than the version he designed, it all changed. It started with a play. Just a short scene I wrote for drama class. A daughter sitting in silence while her mother packed to leave. My teacher entered it into a regional competition without telling me. I won. The prize was a full scholarship to Juilliard's summer intensive for young playwrights. I was 17. I waited 2 days to tell him. We were eating spaghetti. He was grading papers. I tried to keep my voice steady. Dad, it's theater, but it's serious. It's real. Juilliard. They chose me. He didn't look up. He twirled his fork, nodded once, and then said, I didn't raise you to chase dreams. Then he pushed his chair back and left the table. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just absence. Cold, deliberate absence. The next day, the kitchen light stayed off during breakfast. At dinner, he barely acknowledged I was there. He never mentioned Juilliard again. But I didn't stop writing. I kept going quietly. I rehearsed scenes in the empty auditorium after school. I got a part-time job at a bookstore using a friend's name so it wouldn't show up on his taxes. I researched FAFSA by myself, emailed the program director, confirmed housing. I applied to the university directly. I did it all alone. By spring, I had a dorm assignment in Manhattan and a one-way train ticket. The day I left, I folded the letter carefully. 1 page, handwritten, no dramatics. I wrote, I love you. I just need space to think. I'll be home on Sunday. I wasn't running away. I was making a choice. A soft one. A respectful one. The train pulled out of Willow Ridge Station at 7:05 a.m. I didn't cry. I thought he'd be upset, maybe even furious. But deep down, I believed that after 2 days after reading that letter, he'd be waiting on the porch with arms crossed and eyes full of tired relief. I rehearsed what I would say the whole ride back. I'm sorry if I scared you. I just needed to breathe. I'm not giving up. I'm trying to find myself. When the train rolled back into town Sunday afternoon, I felt nervous but hopeful. I climbed the hill toward our house, suitcase in hand, wearing the same jeans I'd left in. The porch light was off. That should have been the first sign. My key didn't fit. I jiggled it, then stopped. The lock had been changed. I rang the bell. Knocked. Waited. Nothing. Called his phone, voicemail. Called Mom's, disconnected. Then I saw it, sitting neatly beside the porch swing. My suitcase zipped. A plastic bag on top with my birth certificate, my social security card, and a yellow post-it note. You made your choice. Good luck. My hands went cold. I sat down on the steps and stared at the door. It never opened. Neighbors walked by. Some looked away. Others slowed down. I saw it in their eyes. Pity, judgment, agreement. They knew. The silence around the house was too clean, too practiced. They weren't scared. They had prepared for this. And the door, it was never meant to open again. I sat on the porch steps until the sun went down, still holding my letter like it meant something, still half expecting the porch light to flicker on. Still hoping the door would crack open and someone, anyone, would say this was just a misunderstanding. But the house stayed dark. The street stayed quiet. And my parents, they stayed gone. 2 days later, I was lying on Leah's couch, my best friend, the only one who picked up the phone, scrolling aimlessly through Facebook, trying to convince myself that this was all some kind of fever dream. That's when I saw it. A status update from my aunt. Public. Loud. Condemning. Please pray for our family. Harper has run away. She left a hateful note. We fear she's with someone dangerous. My breath caught. My stomach turned to ice. I clicked the comments. So sorry. Praying for you. She always seemed troubled. Hope you find her. Comment after comment. Strangers painting a portrait of a girl I didn't even recognize. Dangerous. Unstable. Lost. I hadn't just been abandoned. I'd been erased. The letter I left had no anger in it. No malice. Just a soft exit. A temporary pause. But my father had rewritten the ending, handed out a version that made him the victim, and me the problem. My mom blocked my number. My old drama teacher never replied to my emails again. No one from school reached out, not a single classmate, not a single friend of the family. It was like a door had closed behind me, and the entire town pretended it was never there. And then the final blow came. 1 week later, I received an email from Juilliard, not from the program director, from admissions, a cold, impersonal message. Due to changes in your academic record and failure to provide updated transcripts, your place in the program has been withdrawn. I felt the floor fall out beneath me. My father hadn't just changed the locks. He had destroyed the foundation. He'd contacted the school, tampered with my transcript, reported me as missing, or worse, mentally unstable. My application flagged, my opportunity gone. Everything I had worked for vanished in a paragraph. That night I didn't cry, not out loud. I curled up on Leah's secondhand couch, used a rolled-up hoodie as a pillow, and learned how to cry into fabric without making a sound. By the third night I didn't need the hoodie. I had learned to cry in silence. The next week, I got a job at a 24-hour diner on 6th Street. It wasn't glamorous, but it was open. Night shifts mostly. The kind of place where the lights buzzed softly, the coffee never ran out, and no one asked why your eyes were red. I scrubbed floors, took every double shift I could, ate leftover toast from customers' plates when no one was looking, used my tips to buy notebooks from the dollar store. I kept writing, scenes, monologues, scraps of dialogue, anything that kept me from disappearing entirely. I enrolled in community college under a payment plan. No FAFSA, no cosigner, just me, a secondhand laptop, and a bank account that never stayed over $50 for more than 2 days. I didn't tell anyone where I came from. When people asked about my parents, I just said, they're back east. Technically true. Emotionally, they were gone. What hurt more than the silence was how easy it was for everyone to accept it. No one asked questions. No one searched for me. No one posted a missing photo or filed a report. It was like I had never belonged in the first place. But slowly, piece by piece, I began to rebuild. Night classes in playwriting, lighting gigs at off-Broadway shows. A black box theater downtown gave me 3 nights to test out a one-woman show I wrote called Unwritten. Only 10 people came, but one of them was a columnist from The New Yorker writing a feature on estrangement. She interviewed me. The article was called The Truth We Bury. It didn't name my father, didn't mention the district, but I knew. 3 days after it was published, someone tried to reset the password to my email. They failed. But I didn't need a name on a screen to know who it was. He read it. He knew I was still out here, alive, thriving, and no longer hidden. I didn't expect the article to change anything. I didn't publish it to prove a point. I wrote it because, for the first time in years, someone asked me what had actually happened and waited for the answer. It was raw, unpolished, just the truth. But the truth has a way of echoing, especially when it's been buried for too long. By then, I was living in a studio apartment in Brooklyn, so small the kitchen was practically in my bed. I had a mattress on the floor, a bookshelf made of milk crates, and a plant named Leo that kept dying and coming back. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But the life I was building, it was mine. I had friends who knew the real story. I had shows that bore my name. I had an inbox full of small theaters asking if I could send them scripts. And yet, Every time the wind rattled the fire escape or my phone buzzed with a blocked call, I'd freeze. Because the silence from back home, 10 years thick, was still the loudest sound in my life. Until Jessa messaged me. Jessa, my cousin, the wild one, the girl who snuck cigarettes in middle school and dyed a pink streak in her hair the night before prom. We hadn't spoken since I was 17. She had believed the story too, like the rest of them. But that night, she sent 6 words that made my hands shake. I found something. It's about you. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen like it might vanish. 3 days passed before I picked up the phone and called her. Her voice cracked the moment she answered. I'm sorry I never reached out. I believed him. We all did. She told me she'd been helping her dad clean out their attic. Old tax returns, moldy holiday decorations, dusty kindergarten crafts from when her mom used to teach. And then, at the bottom of a cardboard box wrapped in a Ziploc bag, she found a sealed envelope. My name on the front, my handwriting, blue ink, the letter, the one I left on the kitchen table, the one that said, I love you. I just need space. I'll be home Sunday. No anger, no rebellion, no threat, just the voice of a scared girl begging for understanding. She opened it, she read it, and suddenly, everything she'd been told for 10 years crumbled. Her father, my uncle, tried to brush it off. Oh, that old thing. But she knew better. She knew what it meant. That my father hadn't just lied, he had stolen my truth, hidden it in an attic like something shameful, and replaced it with a version that made him the martyr. That night, Jessa scanned the letter and emailed it to me. I printed it, smoothed out the creases with trembling fingers, and just stared. I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like finding the final puzzle piece to a picture you weren't sure ever existed. All the gaslighting, all the years of being told I was unstable, dramatic, difficult, that I had chosen to disappear. And here it was. Proof. I had never disappeared. I had just been silenced. The letter sat on my desk for days, next to a burnt-down candle and a half-finished mug of coffee. I didn't know what to do with it. At first, I thought maybe I'd send it to the school board anonymously, or post it online, but none of that felt right. Then the invitation hit social media. A flyer, gold trim, cursive font. Join us in celebrating Superintendent Thomas Lane's retirement. 40 years of service, a legacy of leadership, a father to our community. That word, father, stabbed harder than any insult, because he hadn't just failed me, he had erased me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at the letter in my hand and thought, you buried the truth. I'm going to dig it up in front of everyone. I RSVP'd using my middle name, Elaine. One guest. No +1. No special meal request. I didn't need backup. I had the truth. 2 hours before the gala, I stood on the same porch where I'd once sat with swollen eyes and shaking hands, waiting for a door that never opened. The paint was peeling now. The bushes were overgrown. The welcome mat was gone. It didn't feel like a home anymore, just a structure full of ghosts. I didn't come for closure. I didn't come for forgiveness. I came because I needed to know. Not from him. From her. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I turned to leave, my coat catching in the wind, and then I heard the creak. The door cracked open 2 inches, then wider. And there she was, Meredith Lane, my mother, older now, smaller, her gray hair pulled into a tired bun, her sweater too big on her shoulders, like life had pressed her down inch by inch. Her eyes landed on mine, and for a moment something flickered, recognition, guilt, maybe even relief. She opened her mouth. "Harper!" she whispered, as if the name burned her throat. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I asked one question. "Did you know?" She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't need to. She stepped outside, clutching her cardigan tight around her chest, and sat on the porch swing. I stayed standing. I had earned the right to stand. "I found the letter," I said. The real one. The one I left on the table. The one he hid. Her eyes closed. A long, silent nod. I wanted to come after you, she said softly. I really did. Then why didn't you? She looked out toward the empty street. Because he said you were unstable, that you ran off with an older man, that we had to protect ourselves, that if I reached out, it would make things worse. I stared at her. And you believed him? Her voice cracked. I believed him because I was afraid of him too. There it was. The truth. Not the kind that screams. The kind that hangs in the air like a fog. Heavy, silent, undeniable. In that moment, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt something colder, distance. She wasn't the villain, but she wasn't innocent either. She had been the silence that held the lie in place. I used to imagine, I said quietly, that you came looking for me, that maybe you'd show up at my shift with a bag of cookies or a cardigan or something, that you'd say you didn't believe him, that you missed me. She looked down at her lap. I did miss you, she whispered. Every day. But you stayed. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. The silence said it all. I stepped back toward the edge of the porch. I could feel the weight of my letter in my coat pocket, a folded memory made real again. I didn't offer a hug. I didn't ask for hers. We weren't that kind of mother and daughter anymore. We never really had been. As I turned to leave, she spoke again, barely above a whisper. Will you be speaking tonight? I paused, hand on the railing. Yes. She didn't ask what I planned to say. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she always had. I walked down the steps, out of the yard, and didn't look back. Not because I was angry, because there was nothing left to turn toward. The ballroom glowed with soft gold light. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above linen-draped tables, clinking glasses and plates half filled with catered salmon and mushroom risotto. People laughed, hugged, posed for photos in front of a life-size poster that read, "Celebrating Superintendent Thomas Lane, a legacy of integrity." I stood near the back, close enough to hear the speeches, far enough to remain invisible for now. They called him up. 40 years of service, a mentor, a model citizen, a father figure to so many. He walked on stage in a perfectly tailored navy suit, beaming with the kind of smile only men with unchallenged reputations wear. The mayor was there, the school board, former principals, a local reporter. The applause was thunderous, until it wasn't. I waited, one breath, then another, and then I stepped forward. One step, then another, slowly, deliberately. I wasn't rushing. This moment had waited 10 years. Faces began to turn. First confusion, then whispers. Some widened their eyes. Others blinked in disbelief. Then he saw me. Thomas Lane froze. The smile drained from his face like someone pulled the plug. His hands stiffened at his sides. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I reached the edge of the stage. He leaned down, desperate, his voice low and shaky. "Harper, not here. Please." But I was already speaking. "Hi," I said into the mic, loud enough to carry to every corner of the room. "My name is Harper Lane. I'm his daughter." Gasps. Forks paused mid-bite. Wine glasses stopped mid-air. A silence, so sharp it felt like it could slice through the fabric of the room. "I haven't been in this town or this room in 10 years, I said. Because 10 years ago my father told everyone I ran away, that I left a hateful note, that I was unstable. I reached into my coat and pulled out the envelope. This is that note." I unfolded it slowly, smoothed the creases, and read, "I love you. I just need space. I'll be home Sunday." I let the words hang. No one moved. I looked out at the crowd, familiar faces, teachers from school, neighbors from our street, people who once smiled at me in grocery stores and whispered after I passed. Some looked at me like I was a ghost. Others like they were seeing me for the first time. Does that sound like someone who ran away? A long beat of silence. Then a voice from somewhere in the middle. "Is that why she vanished?" Another, softer. I remember praying for her, and then Jessa stood up. She held up her phone, a scan of the letter glowing on the screen. He hid it, she said. For 10 years, he let us believe something that wasn't true. Gasps turned into murmurs. Murmurs into shifting chairs. Someone whispered, "What else did he lie about?" Thomas stepped toward the mic. "There's more to the story," he said, voice trembling. I held up a hand. "Don't." I looked him in the eye. "You told your version for 10 years. This one's mine." A woman near the podium, Vice Principal Blake, stood slowly. "I always wondered," she said, "why you shut down the theater program so suddenly." Another man, Mr. Doyle, an old guidance counselor, added, "You said she had a breakdown, that she was dangerous." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. They were doing it for me now. Even the school superintendent, who had toasted him minutes earlier, stepped back from the stage, arms crossed, his smile gone. Then, from near the back, "You erased your daughter to protect your image." The room unraveled, not with yelling or chaos, but with something worse. Recognition. One by one, the faces in the crowd shifted from admiration to doubt, from belief to betrayal. Thomas looked around, searching for an anchor, a lifeline, someone to speak in his defense. But no one did. Even my mother, seated near the front, looked away. And just like that, his legacy cracked. Because a reputation built on silence only survives if no one speaks. He stepped back from the microphone. No apology, no denial, just a retreat to his seat where the spotlight no longer reached. The slideshow kept playing behind him. Pictures of smiling students, hallway murals, trophies he once proudly displayed. But no one was watching anymore, because the story had changed, and so had the man. I didn't stay for cake. While people whispered and waiters cleared plates in silence, I slipped out the side door and stepped into the cool night air. The sky was deep navy, the kind of night that holds its breath. Jessa followed a few minutes later. She didn't say anything right away. She just stood beside me on the curb like we were waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. Then she said, "You were brave." I shook my head. No, I was overdue. We stood there quietly, the muffled sound of the gala fading behind thick walls. It felt like standing outside a funeral, except no one had died. They'd just been seen for who they really were. "I think," I said slowly, "I spent years just wanting someone to believe me." I looked down at the envelope still in my hand, and I realized I didn't need belief. I needed the silence to stop. Jessa nodded. "You ended it." "No," I said, finally smiling. "I reclaimed it. I didn't need to hand the letter to anyone. I didn't need my father to read it. He already had. And so had they. He built his legacy on silence. I took it back. We walked away, not as ghosts, not as victims, but as women who no longer lived in someone else's story.